would you like to say?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome.
I just wanted to sort of offer a slightly nuanced view compared to Tony, because my constant fear, first of all, I think conflating Zionism and Judaism is a very dangerous thing. And I think the belief in a Jewish homeland is fair, given that every other major religion has a homeland. And I don't think that distinction is ever made clear enough in the media that there is an entitlement to this. And I think that when you are fully entitled to criticise a government, but to then label that whole government as the Jewish people and Israelis as agreeing with that is also, it's naive, and it makes it oversimplifies it.
I agree with you completely, but I am required to point out that the Israeli government does it all the time. So Netanyahu cites biblical justification for some of the things that he does, and always justifies his, what I will choose to call atrocities, by claiming that he is protecting all Jewish people, the Jewish people in Israel. He does it, and that for me is as bad as anybody else doing it.
Sure, and I think that is, that's a fair comment, but he is an elected leader, but there are many millions of people in Israel who don't agree with him and think far differently, and so you are painting everyone in Israel with the same viewpoint. And I think my point...
I'm not, but people who make this conflation are. I'm categorically not. My problem is with Netanyahu's regime, Itamar Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, and these people that even Netanyahu wouldn't have shared a table with a few years ago, but has been forced to bring into the fold in order to keep himself in power. But yes, it's a hideous conflation, but how can you unconflate it, do you think?
Okay, and the one point I wanted to add to what Tony was saying is that I think people have to accept that there is an existential threat on Israel from its neighbours who are, within their own charter, there to dismantle and destroy Israel. So it's a very unique position for people to be in, where you are having the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas and Iran, all who want to destroy Israel. And so it's not like there is this perfect world that they're living in that Israel's retaliating in such a way. I don't agree with everything that's happening by any stretch, but I don't think that's quite clear when people view Israel's actions as to what threat they are constantly under. What I would do, I personally think, because, again, I believe there is a right to protest and to be pro-Palestinian, that is absolutely legitimate, but if you go on these marches, there's a severe a lot of anti-Semitism and anti-Israel, and so...
Well, hang on, they're two very, very different things. So what have you... I mean, this isn't a gotcha question. I'm not going to insist that you provide photographic evidence or anything like that. But I mean, being anti-Israel, when Israel is embarked upon its current course of action in Gaza, doesn't seem to me to be controversial, albeit that the point you make about the existential threat that Israel lives under. But what is the anti-Semitism? I mean, how do we get a proper handle?
Because when you see anti-Trump rallies, you don't see, or anti-anyone, it's anti that person or anti that ruler. You don't just get...
Actually, I've had accusations recently that opposing Donald Trump's war in Iran is evidence of anti-Semitism, but that's possibly peculiar to my rather strange existence.
But that is. But you can criticise Netanyahu and his actions without bringing every Jewish person into...
Yes, which is the difference between anti-Israel. Israel can be used as a byword for the current regime. When people talk about Britain, they're talking about the government. But a distinction I always prefer to add the word regime or administration or the names of the people in it, because I think it's clearer. But I don't think people who you would typify as being anti-Israel are anti-Semitic. That's a conflation that we're supposed to be resisting. But I mean, because you're nudging towards the idea of calling for the marches to be prescribed, I think. Are you?
No, I actually want them to be, I think, where there is clear anti-Semitism.
Better regulated.
Better regulated.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
People have a right to protest what's going on, even if you agree or disagree, but it's the way and the narrative of, burning Israeli flags with the Star of David on it, which is very closely linked to all of Judaism. It kind of makes...
But these things are already regulated. I mean, that example would already be regulated.
Sure, but you see these like the Israeli flag in the bin and blood libel, all these classic blood libels of bleeding, people eating babies. These are like century-old tropes against Jewish people.
I haven't seen those.
But then I'm on these marches, and I get tons and tons and tons of information, and I appreciate that because that's more centred to what my algorithm shows me.
Of course, but I mean, you would probably agree that much of the UK media is historically very sympathetic towards whatever administration is in place in Israel, and very committed, at least ostensibly, to battling anti-Semitism. And if people are spotted on these marches with I forget the precise examples, but with offensive insignia or offensive glyphs and signs, I'm aware of them being arrested. I keep hearing people calling them hate marches or claiming that they're riddled with anti-Semitic imagery, and I think we probably need more proof of that.
I mean, we all agree that the chants like from the river to the sea, those are very, very...
But it's in Likud founding document, that phrase.
Okay. I mean, can I just say one of the things that I would like to see happen?
Of course, but just respond to the point I just made, because I do understand that is a very upsetting phrase for people, but I think often they don't realise that it's a phrase that has been used in that political environment by pretty much everybody at various points in history.
Well, I appreciate that, and perhaps my naivety, I wasn't aware of that, so I appreciate that.
Okay. So what else might help?
I think, and you see it in our institutions and the universities, and it's across America as well, there has been a sort of a very sort of... that's where a lot of this sort of liberal anti-Semitism comes from, and I think there needs to be done more at those stages where people are being educated to make it a clearly more nuanced point.
I think we probably all need a bit of education on what the difference is between being anti this regime and I describe myself as being anti-genocide and being anti-Semitic, because the conflation is being undertaken by an awful lot of people.
Yeah, and when you see this boycott Israel, boycott this, it doesn't actually help what the problem is.
No, I agree with you.
So people are very quick to jump on the bandwagon and put anti-Semitic things in Tesco's and the Jewish products, but that doesn't help what the actual...
But again, I'm with you on this. I think the first thing everybody should do is really drill down into the difference between being opposed to the actions of the current Israeli regime and indulging in ancient hatred. The problem is that the phrase anti-Semitism has been so widely applied to people who are doing nothing but to criticise or condemn the Israeli regime, that the blurring, and of course Benjamin Netanyahu will be very quick to typify anyone criticising him as being, or his actions as being anti-Semitic. So the blurring is coming from every single angle. And those of us who dream perhaps naively of peace and harmony probably need to work harder to pin down precisely what that distinction or what that difference is.
Hi James, how are you doing today?
I'm all good, mate. What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, I do have a suggestion on how things can improve, but first of all, I just want to say a little bit about how frustrating it is, to be a British Jew fighting anti-Semitism in this country, which I think is unique to the Jewish community. So everything that we do or suggest is always used to fight against us. So when we have terrible incidents like yesterday, you'll see things like people saying that the government needs to spend more money on security and healthcare for the Jewish communities, and then you have people attacking us saying, why are the Jews getting more money when they're that rich? And then when we actually have our own healthcare with the ambulances and security services, people are saying, why do they have their own security services and ambulances when they're not helping everybody else? And then the worst of all...
I'm going to just stop you quickly there, because I mean, as far as I'm aware, they do help anybody else who is in the relevant area.
But all I'm saying is that everything that we suggest is used against us.
Yes.
We have people, we have our ex-football heroes who we've all, as British and English Jews, who we love and celebrated and spent our money on cheering. We see them calling us rats, and then they're forgiven. And people on the radio, even on national radio, are calling what happened in Gaza a genocide, when we know what a genocide is.
Well, the International Criminal Court is sitting on that, and so many human rights organisations in Israel and beyond are calling it a genocide. And of course, Benjamin Netanyahu faces arrest. So the first point you made, which I thought was really powerful, because those are examples.
It's all linked. It's all linked. It's not one or the other, James.
Well, then you're conflating Israel with Judaism.
So why shouldn't I, as a Jew, be proud of Israel? Why are you saying to me...
Because they killed 75,000 Palestinians. How can you be proud of that?
I'm not proud of that. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of Israel for fighting for the safety of me and my brethren. When we're not safe in this country, we've got national radio presenters.
And that's fine. But nobody's criticising you for that. Nobody's criticising you for that. But people are allowed to disagree with you. And also, I mean, you referenced Gary Lineker there, who was absolutely mortified. I've spoken to him about this personally, when that image of the rat appeared.
He hasn't stopped spreading.
No, he criticises Israel. And you can't be calling for a silencing of criticism. What is it then?
He's spreading propaganda against the Jewish people. It's not about Israel.
You're going to have to provide an example of that.
I think that one incident is enough. I don't think
he's accounted and apologised for that.
I don't think you would allow that to happen to anybody else. You're holding Nigel Farage accountable for something that happened 40 years ago that he may or may not have said at school.
Well, I've spoken to the people. I've spoken to the people that he said it to. But I don't understand what criticism. And I've spoken to Gary Lineker as well. So I've spoken to the people at the heart of both of these stories.
Fair enough.
And you haven't.
Thank you. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
So what is it that you want people to be prevented from doing? Because nobody thinks that you should be posting images that contain pictures of rats. So what is it that you think? Well, actually, given that I read it out just before you came on air, how do you respond to the comments yesterday from Rabbi Josh Levy? What the government of Israel does reflects on us as Jews and reflects on our Judaism. Therefore, it is our Jewish obligation to be in dialogue with that in some way. And him and his co-founder, Rabbi Charlie Baginski, went on to say that the current actions of the Israeli state, Israel's political direction, not only threatened the future of Israel, but also posed a threat to Judaism itself. Do you think he should be allowed to say things like that?
I don't think that's anti-Semitic. I don't think he's calling Jews rats or comparing...
But nobody's defending that. Nobody's defending calling Jews... Nobody's defending calling Jews rats.
You have.
I haven't. It's disgusting. No, I've told you he did it by accident, and he's accounted and atoned for it. In the great context that we're talking about two people who got stabbed in Golders Green yesterday, and we're wondering what we can do to stop that happening again.
Can I make a suggestion for that then?
Yes.
So, ironically, one of the safest places to live now as a Jew, because it's not this country, because we've seen what we have in national radio presenters and TV stars. It's not this country anymore. One of the most safest places you can live, unbelievably, ironically, is Dubai, which it was not a safe place for a Jew to even visit 20 years ago.
So your suggestion as to what can be done to make things safer here?
So yes, so if I go to Dubai, what have they done over the past 20 years? And probably similar in Saudi Arabia.
This is Sharia law. So you're calling for Sharia law?
No, that's not what I'm saying. If you let me finish,
I will.
So what they've done, they've prescribed terrorist organisations such as the IRGC, and they have...
How will that make Jewish people here safer?
If I can explain. If you see in Dubai, in Saudi, they have got a very, very strict policy on extremism within their own mosques and Islamic education. They've rid it all of that. In Dubai, you cannot wave a Palestinian flag. You can't go on the street shouting "Globalise the Intifada." You can't shout "River to the Sea." They know what that means. They don't have white little liberals who defend them and pretend and turn a blind eye to what actually it means and say, "Oh, they're just peaceful. There's just one or two people." We know what it means. We've been crying out for the past 3 years, saying, "Look, we're not safe in our streets. People are calling for our blood."
I need to speak because we're going to run out of time. What is it that you think the British government could learn specifically from the Saudi Arabian regime?
I think they need to. I think if we're being very honest, which I know a lot of people are, we need to look where the violent anti-Semitism comes from, not the rhetoric.
But just before the news, from the Saudi Arabian regime, what could Keir Starmer learn?
They need to learn that they need to go into the mosques and actually work with the Islamic leaders and rid the horrendous, evil...
I mean, you're calling for Britain to be more like Saudi Arabia.
in that aspect, yes.
Okay, I mean, it's a view, and I'll definitely put it on the list. Thank you, Mark. And you know, you cannot publicly practice certain religions, I don't think, in Saudi Arabia. In fact, actually, before you go, Mark, you can't publicly practice Judaism in Saudi Arabia.
But that's not what I'm praising him about. You're allowed to say one thing and the other thing's bad.
Okay, but just to make sure that you know that.
If I wanted to live in Saudi Arabia, I'd move to Saudi Arabia.
You can't move any religion other than Islam in Saudi Arabia. So, I mean, listen, you're clearly very emotional, and I mean, it's an interesting suggestion, but it's important that I remind my listeners and possibly inform them for the first time that you're suggesting the British government could learn something about making Jews safer by copying some of the tactics of a government that doesn't allow Jewish people to practice Judaism mate, that's bonkers, isn't it? It just is. You can't publicly worship as a Jew in Saudi Arabia, which of course is what Nick Timothy thinks should happen to Muslims here, but I'm happy to disagree with both of those positions and reject out of hand the idea that it's something that we should be contemplating introducing even mere elements of in this country. I apologise if I've misunderstood you, but that's absolutely crackers. 11:30 is the Southern Forest. Geraldine, what would you like to say?
Well, so I'm not Jewish, but what I'm seeing on social media is every time something like, well, what happened yesterday, I'm still seeing people justifying it or conflating it with what's happening in the Middle East and with the Israeli government. But or people saying things like, here we go, they're victims again. We would never see this. We never see this with anybody else. We would not accept it.
I mean, you should see some of the anti-Islamic stuff that I've got appearing in front of me just today when we're talking about anti-Semitic attacks in Golders Green.
Yeah, and the thing is that most of it, you know, I'm seeing people defend it at least, but I'm seeing when it's something to do, which is a tiny community, if we remember that, you know, the Jewish community, I think it's only 250,000 people in the whole, it's a tiny, but I'm not seeing people...
condemn it enough.
No, I'm not saying people say...
I worry sometimes.
I usually reply something like, are you justifying what's happening to Jewish people? Because for me, it's completely separate. You know, I wouldn't justify an attack on a Muslim person because of what Hamas did on October the 7th, but I don't know why, in this case, it's not defended enough.
I mean, everybody, whether Muslim or not, was called upon to condemn what Hamas did on October the 7th before they were permitted to offer any sort of opinion on the broader picture. I worry about social media listening to you, Geraldine. I honestly don't know whether or not it's worth...
There's not enough support.
Well, my life has improved immeasurably since I stopped spending so much time on it, precisely because it's full of hateful comments and disgust and lies. I mean, I was chatting to some friends about this last night, and what's massively underplayed in all of these conversations is the commoditisation of lies. There's or horribleness. So, you know, conspiracy theories. I said conspiracy theory in play at the moment I hadn't even got my head around properly. It's relevant to an unfolding court case, so I probably can't say anything about it at the moment. But good God, how the things that people believe, and we sit there trying to wrestle with the psychology of it. But of course, what social media has done is reward extremity and reward dishonesty. So people say vile things, people tell ridiculous lies, and the algorithm gives them money or status or clicks, and therefore the merry-go-round continues. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, having an army of nice people on social media responding to the nasty people sounds like a lovely idea. But of course, we had it, and then Elon Musk came along and bought it and turned everything upside down. Thank you, Geraldine. It's coming up to 11:45. You are listening to